The Steel Serpents Motorcycle Club thought they were invincible in the quiet suburbs of Northern Virginia. They'd carved out their territory through intimidation and violence, leaving broken lives scattered across 3 counties. But on a rainy autumn evening, they made a fatal mistake that would haunt outlaw legends for years to come. They harassed Sarah Mitchell, not knowing that 4 decorated Navy SEALs were watching from the shadows. The Steel Serpents had seen what they wanted to see: a vulnerable 32-year-old war widow still wearing her late husband's dog tags, an easy target to pressure into selling her struggling automotive repair shop. What they didn't see were the silent guardians, the same elite operators who had served with Lieutenant Commander Jack Mitchell in the most dangerous corners of Afghanistan, the same men who had made a blood oath to their dying brother to protect his family, the same warriors who had spent the last 3 years watching over Sarah while maintaining their cover as ordinary civilians in the community. Now, as the bikers circled her shop like vultures, throwing their weight around and making threats, they had no idea they were being observed through precision optics by men who had hunted the deadliest terrorists in the world. Former Chief Petty Officer Marcus Kane watched from his position in an abandoned office building across the street, his weathered hands steady on his binoculars as he documented every move, every threat, every violation. 3 years into civilian life, he still maintained the same discipline that had made him one of the most lethal special operators in the Navy. Target 1 approaching the main entrance again, he murmured into his concealed radio, watching the Steel Serpents president, a hulking figure known as Butcher, swagger toward Sarah's shop. Same pattern as yesterday, 2 prospects flanking, trying to look intimidating. "Copy that," came the quiet response from Derek Chen, former special warfare operator positioned in a delivery van down the block. "I count 4 more bikes pulling up behind the shop. They're getting bolder." Inside Mitchell's automotive, Sarah wiped the grease from her hands with a shop rag, her movements precise and controlled despite the anxiety churning in her stomach. The calendar on the wall showed October 15th, exactly 3 years since she'd received the visit that had changed her life forever. The knock on the door, the chaplain's solemn face, the news that Jack's helicopter had gone down in a remote valley. Some days the grief still felt fresh enough to steal her breath. The bell above the shop door jingled, pulling her from the memory. Sarah squared her shoulders, channeling the strength Jack had always said he admired in her. Butcher filled the doorway, his massive frame made more imposing by the leather cut displaying the Steel Serpents colors, a coiled snake wrapped around a bloody dagger. "Mrs. Mitchell," he rumbled, false charm dripping from his voice. "Have you had a chance to reconsider our offer?" Sarah met his gaze steadily, just as she had the previous 3 times he'd come around. "My answer hasn't changed. This shop isn't for sale." "Business must be tough for a woman alone," Butcher said, moving further into the garage bay while his prospects spread out. "Especially in this economy. Our investment group is prepared to be very generous. 300,000 cash. More than fair for a struggling operation like this." Through his optics, Kane watched the prospects' positioning, noting how they were trying to subtly box Sarah in. Amateur moves that telegraphed their intentions to anyone with proper training. He keyed his radio again. "All units, be advised. Hostiles attempting to establish tactical advantage inside the shop." "Ready to move on your go," came the response from Chris Torres, former special warfare operator concealed in the alley behind the shop. The 4th member of their team, James Wilson, maintained his cover as a regular customer, casually working on his truck in one of the repair bays while keeping Sarah in his peripheral vision. "This shop was Jack's dream," Sarah replied firmly, though Kane could see the slight tremor in her hands. "He built it from nothing after his first deployment. It's not just a business, it's his legacy." Butcher's fake smile slipped slightly. "Legacy won't pay the bills, sweetheart. Way I hear it, you're behind on your property taxes. Would be a shame if the county had to seize the place." He leaned closer, dropping his voice. "Of course, we might be able to help with that too if you're willing to be friendly." Kane's jaw tightened as he watched Sarah take an instinctive step back. 3 years of surveillance had taught them the Steel Serpents patterns. They'd start with offers, move to threats, then escalation. They'd done it to 3 other businesses in the area already, but Sarah's shop was different. This time they'd chosen the wrong target. "I think you should leave," Sarah said, her voice carrying the same quiet steel that had helped her survive the hardest days after Jack's death. "I have work to do." "Maybe you're not understanding the situation clearly," Butcher growled, all pretense of charm vanishing. "This neighborhood is changing. Smart folks adapt, others." He shrugged meaningfully. "They tend to have accidents." In the repair bay, Wilson tensed slightly, his hand sliding casually toward the concealed holster beneath his work shirt. But Kane's voice came through their earpieces, calm and controlled. "Hold position." "Not yet." Sarah stood her ground, though her heart was hammering. "Are you threatening me, Mr. Butcher?" "Threatening?" He spread his hands in mock innocence. "Just having a business discussion. But since you mention it..." He nodded to one of his prospects, who moved to a pristine classic Mustang up on a lift, a customer's prized restoration project. "Nice car. Be a real shame if something happened to it." The prospect pulled out a switchblade, grinning as he dragged it along the car's fresh paint job, leaving a deep scratch in the perfect finish. Sarah's face went pale with anger. "Stop that. That car belongs to a customer." "Accidents happen," Butcher said coldly, "especially to stubborn people who don't know when to take a good offer. Think about it, Mrs. Mitchell. We'll be back tomorrow for your answer." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and don't bother calling the cops. They know better than to stick their noses in Steel Serpents' business." After they roared away on their bikes, Sarah sank onto a work stool, her hands shaking as she pulled Jack's dog tags from beneath her shirt, clutching them like a lifeline. In his observation post, Kane spoke quietly into his radio. "All units, maintain surveillance. Chen, get those license plates. Torres, follow their route back to their clubhouse. Time to accelerate the timeline." "Copy that," Chen replied. "What about local law enforcement?" "Butcher was telling the truth about that," Kane said grimly. "I've confirmed they've got at least 2 deputies on their payroll. We're on our own with this one." He paused, watching Sarah compose herself and move to inspect the damage to the customer's car. Just like old times. In the growing darkness, Kane thought about the promise they'd made 3 years ago, gathering around Jack's hospital bed in Germany after the rescue operation had come too late. Their lieutenant had known he wasn't going to make it, but his only concern had been for Sarah. They'd given their word, not just to protect her, but to be there if she ever needed them. Now it was time to make good on that promise. "Sir," Chen's voice came through his earpiece. "Got something you need to see. Steel Serpents aren't just running their usual protection rackets. Looks like they're moving something big through the area. Multiple vehicles, heavy security, definitely not their normal operations." Kane watched Sarah lock up the shop, making sure she got safely to her car. "Keep digging. If they're escalating their criminal enterprise, that gives us more options for taking them down legally." He paused. "But if they make another move against the shop?" "Then we do this the Seal way," Torres finished grimly. "Exactly," Kane confirmed. "No one threatens our family. Time to remind these outlaw bikers why you don't mess with a fallen warrior's widow, especially when his brothers are still standing watch." The autumn wind carried a hint of winter as Sarah drove home, unaware of the multiple vehicles discreetly shadowing her route, protecting her just as they had every night for the past 3 years. The Steel Serpents thought they were the predators in this territory, but they were about to learn a hard lesson about a different kind of hunter, the kind forged in combat, tempered by loss, and bound by an unbreakable oath to a fallen brother. Kane lowered his binoculars, his mind already formulating plans, analyzing angles, calculating contingencies. Just like planning a combat operation. But this time the battlefield was suburban Virginia, and the enemy wasn't Taliban fighters but domestic criminals who'd made the mistake of threatening someone under SEAL protection. They'd give the Steel Serpents one more chance to back off peacefully. After that, well, there was a reason elite special operators were called quiet professionals. The night deepened as Kane coordinated his team's movements, each man falling naturally into the roles they'd perfected through countless missions together. They'd spent 3 years maintaining their covers, building their civilian lives while keeping their promise to Jack. Now it was time to put those hard-earned skills to use. The Steel Serpents were about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones you never see coming, the ones who hunt from the shadows, guided by loyalty, driven by honor, and trained in the deadliest forms of warfare ever devised. Let the hunt begin. Sarah's morning routine hadn't changed in 3 years. Coffee at dawn, check the shop's security cameras through her phone, then visit Jack's grave before opening up for business. The crisp October air bit through her jacket as she knelt beside the white marble headstone at Arlington National Cemetery, arranging fresh flowers and running her fingers over the engraved letters. Lieutenant Commander Jack Mitchell, United States Navy SEAL, beloved husband and warrior. "They're pushing harder now, Jack," she said softly, her breath visible in the morning chill. "Just like you always said. Bullies don't stop until someone stands up to them." She touched the dog tags around her neck, remembering how he'd pressed them into her hand that last time, before deploying on the mission that would claim his life. From a respectful distance, Kane watched Sarah's morning ritual while maintaining his surveillance pattern. Through his earpiece, Chen's voice reported, "Multiple Steel Serpents spotted heading toward town, including Butcher and his top lieutenants. Look like they're gearing up for something." "Copy that," Kane replied quietly. "Wilson, status on the shop?" "All cameras and security measures in place," Wilson confirmed from his position inside Mitchell's automotive, where he'd arrived early under his cover as a regular customer. "If they try anything, we'll have it documented." Sarah finished her visit and drove to the shop, unaware of the multiple sets of eyes ensuring her safety. Kane had positioned his team carefully, Chen monitoring communications from their surveillance van, Torres conducting counter-surveillance from mobile positions, Wilson maintaining his cover inside the shop, while Kane coordinated everything from his observation post. The morning brought a steady stream of customers to Mitchell's automotive. Despite the Steel Serpents' intimidation tactics, Sarah had built a loyal clientele who appreciated her skilled work and fair prices. She was under the hood of a Jeep when the rumble of motorcycles announced the return of her unwanted visitors. "Multiple tangos approaching," Wilson murmured into his concealed radio, pretending to focus on his own vehicle maintenance. 2 bikes out front, 3 taking positions behind the shop. Butcher entered with his usual swagger, flanked by his top lieutenant, a scarred enforcer known as Razor. But this time their fake friendliness was gone, replaced by cold purpose. "Time's up, Mrs. Mitchell," Butcher announced. "We need your answer." Sarah straightened from the Jeep's engine, wiping her hands deliberately. "I already gave you my answer. The shop's not for sale." "Wrong answer." Butcher nodded to Razor, who moved to the garage's circuit breaker panel and killed the power. The hydraulic lifts lowered slowly, leaving customer vehicles stranded. "See, we tried to be nice about this, offered you a fair price, but you had to be difficult." Through his optics, Kane watched the situation deteriorate. "All units, maintain positions but be ready. Chen, you got eyes on the rear?" "Affirmative," Chen replied. 3 hostiles covering the back exit. Their carrying boss spotted at least 2 concealed weapons. Inside the shop, Sarah felt her heart racing but kept her voice steady. "Turn the power back on. I have customers waiting." "Customers?" Butcher laughed coldly. "Don't think you'll have to worry about that anymore." He pulled out a phone, showing Sarah a series of text messages. "See, word's getting around town that Mitchell's automotive has some serious safety issues. Faulty work, dangerous conditions. Amazing how fast rumors spread on social media these days." Sarah's face paled as she understood their strategy. They weren't just threatening violence, they were attacking her reputation, her livelihood. "You can't do this." "Already doing it, sweetheart." Butcher moved closer, his bulk intimidating in the dim shop. "By the end of the week, you'll be lucky to have any customers left, but our offer still stands, for now, though the price just dropped to $200,000. Kane's jaw clenched as he watched Sarah take an involuntary step back. "Wilson, status. 5 hostiles inside now," Wilson reported quietly, maintaining his cover while discreetly monitoring the situation. 2 more just entered through the back. They're getting more aggressive. Sarah tried to reach for her phone, but Razor moved with surprising speed, snatching it away. He growled. No calls. This is between us and you. Give me my phone, Sarah demanded, her voice carrying the steel that had helped her survive Jack's loss. Now. Instead of complying, Razor deliberately dropped the phone, crushing it under his boot heel. Oops, accidents happen. Speaking of accidents, Butcher added with cruel satisfaction, you might want to check your online reviews. Looks like a lot of people are having serious problems with their vehicles after you worked on them. Brake failures, steering issues, dangerous stuff. Be a shame if the state licensing board had to investigate. Sarah felt the walls closing in. They weren't just threatening her, they were systematically destroying everything she'd built, everything she and Jack had dreamed of. Her vision blurred with angry tears, but she refused to let them fall. All units, maintain surveillance, Kane ordered through the tactical net. Document everything. We're building a case. But his trigger finger itched as he watched the Steel Serpents continue their intimidation. 1 week, Butcher announced. You have 1 week to accept our offer before it drops again. And trust me, you don't want to see what happens after that. He gestured to his men, who began moving through the shop, casually damaging tools and equipment. Just a little demonstration of how accidents can pile up. Sarah watched helplessly as they wreaked havoc on her livelihood. A lifetime of specialized tools scattered across the floor, diagnostic equipment accidentally knocked off workbenches, computer terminals suddenly developing mysterious problems. Boss, Chen's voice came urgently through Kane's earpiece. Got movement at their clubhouse. Large trucks arriving, heavy security. Whatever operation they're running, it's ramping up. Copy that, Kane replied quietly. Keep monitoring. Torres, you still got eyes on their supply routes? Affirmative, Torres confirmed. They're moving something big. Multiple vehicles, professional security, definitely not their usual operations. Inside the shop, Butcher made one final circuit, enjoying Sarah's barely contained distress. 1 week, Mrs. Mitchell. Don't make us come back again. He paused at the door. Oh, and don't bother reporting any of this. Remember what happened to Mike's Diner when they tried to fight back? Sarah remembered. The popular local restaurant had burned to the ground 2 months ago, ruled an electrical accident despite the owner's protests. The message was clear. Resistance would be met with escalating consequences. After the Steel Serpents roared away, Sarah slowly began picking up her scattered tools, her hands shaking with a mixture of rage and fear. Wilson maintained his cover, helping her clean up while secretly documenting the damage. Through his concealed camera, Kane watched Sarah's quiet dignity in the face of destruction, reminded so much of Jack's own strength. All units, report, Kane commanded quietly. Multiple security cameras caught everything, Chen confirmed. Got clear footage of the threats, property damage, everything. Local LEOs are compromised, Torres added, but I've got contact with some trustworthy federal agencies. This level of organized intimidation, combined with their other operations, we might have enough for a RICO case. Timeline? Kane asked, watching Sarah straighten her shop with the same determination she'd shown after Jack's death. At least 2 months to build a proper federal case, Torres replied. Maybe more. Kane's expression hardened. Sarah doesn't have 2 months. They're escalating too fast. He made a decision. Chen, get me everything you can on their operation. Financial records, shipping manifests, communication patterns. Torres, maintain surveillance on their supply routes. Wilson, stay close to the shop. Time to show these outlaws what happens when they push too far. As darkness fell, Sarah finally finished cleaning up the worst of the damage. The shop's security system reported multiple anonymous negative reviews flooding her business pages, just as Butcher had threatened. Her reputation, built over years of honest work, was being systematically destroyed. Alone in the darkened shop, Sarah sank onto a work stool clutching Jack's dog tags. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I'm trying to be strong, but they're taking everything. In his observation post, Kane made another decision. Wilson, maintain position. I'm going to have a conversation with our girl. You sure about this, boss? Chen asked. We break cover now. There's no going back. She's family, Kane replied simply. And family protects their own. Sarah heard the shop's door open behind her and tensed, thinking the Steel Serpents had returned. But the footsteps were different, measured, deliberate, military. She turned to find a familiar face, Marcus Kane, one of her regular customers for the past 3 years. "Evening, Sarah," he said quietly. "Think it's time we had a talk about Jack's last mission, and about the promise we made to him." The autumn wind whispered outside as Sarah stared at the man she'd known only as a customer, suddenly seeing him with new eyes. In the shadows of the damaged shop, surrounded by the wreckage of her dream, she was about to learn that she'd never been alone, that Jack's brothers had been watching over her all along, waiting for the moment when she would need them most. The real hunt was about to begin, and the Steel Serpents were about to learn why you never threaten a fallen warrior's family, especially when his brothers are still standing guard in the shadows. Sarah stared at Marcus Kane, the familiar customer now transformed into something else entirely, a ghost from Jack's past, standing in her darkened shop like a warrior emerging from shadows. You served with Jack?" "3rd Platoon, SEAL Team 6, Kane confirmed quietly. "I was his chief, known as Ghost back then for how I could disappear in plain sight." He moved with practiced efficiency, checking sight lines through the windows before continuing. "Jack was more than our lieutenant. He was our brother." Through her shock, memories clicked into place, the way certain customers always seemed to be around when trouble threatened, the mysterious fixes to her security system, the feeling of being watched over. All this time, "We made a promise," Kane said simply. "In that hospital in Germany when Jack—" He paused, the memory still raw. "His last words were about you. Made us swear we'd keep you safe." Sarah's mind raced. The others? James Wilson, always working on his truck. Former special warfare operator, demolitions expert. Derek Chen runs that delivery service across the street. He was our communications specialist. Chris Torres, who gets coffee every morning at the diner next door, was our sniper. 3 years, Sarah whispered. "You've been watching over me for 3 years?" "We owed Jack," Kane replied. "And your family. Family protects their own." Before Sarah could respond, Kane's radio crackled. "Ghost, we've got movement. Multiple Steel Serpents heading toward town. Looks like they're escalating ahead of schedule." Kane's posture shifted subtly, the casual customer vanishing as the warrior emerged. "Sarah, we need to move. They're coming back." "Why?" "They said I had a week." "Because they're about to start something big," Kane explained, leading her toward the back of the shop. "Chen's been monitoring their communications. The bike gang is just a cover. They're moving weapons, drugs, something major. Your shop sits at a strategic crossroads. They need this location, and they're done playing nice." As if confirming his words, the rumble of motorcycles grew closer. Kane keyed his radio. "All units, execute Protocol Echo. Chen, get that surveillance running. Torres, take overwatch. Wilson, meet us at Rally Point Bravo." Sarah grabbed her jacket, but Kane stopped her from taking anything else. "They need to think they scared you away. Leave everything as is." They slipped out the back just as the first bikes pulled up front. Through his tactical radio, Kane heard Chen report. 8 tangos heavily armed. Butchers with them, and he looks pissed. Kane led Sarah through back alleys with practiced efficiency, moving like a shadow. She recognized the route. They were heading toward the old industrial district. "I've got a safe house set up," he explained quietly. "We'll regroup there, figure out our next move." "Which is what exactly?" Sarah asked, keeping pace despite her confusion. "First, we keep you safe, then—" Kane's voice hardened slightly. "Then we show these outlaws what happens when they threaten the wrong family." They reached an abandoned warehouse that had been converted into a surveillance post. Wilson was waiting inside, his casual demeanor replaced by military precision. Multiple monitors showed camera feeds from around town, including Sarah's shop. "They're tearing the place apart," Wilson reported grimly. "Looking for you. Chen's monitoring their comms. They're angry, getting sloppy, making mistakes." Sarah watched in horror as the Steel Serpents ransacked her business, destroying everything she and Jack had built. But something else caught her attention on the monitors. Large trucks moving through back roads, heavily guarded. "That's their real operation," Kane explained, noting her observation. "They're using the motorcycle club as cover for something bigger. Those trucks have been moving through here every night for the past week. Military-grade equipment, professional security, way above a normal biker gang's capabilities." "We've been tracking their patterns," Wilson added, pulling up surveillance photos. "Multiple safe houses, corrupt local officials, professional counter-surveillance. They're working for someone bigger." Sarah's tactical mind, honed by years of military spouse briefings and Jack's lessons, kicked in. "The old Canyon Road route," she said suddenly. "It bypasses all the main checkpoints, connects directly to the interstate. Jack used to talk about how it would be perfect for moving things undetected." Kane nodded approvingly. "Exactly. Your shop sits right at the crucial junction. They need that location for their operation. That's why they're not just trying to buy you out. They need everyone in that area gone, no witnesses." Chen's voice crackled through their comms. "Ghost, you need to see this. They're setting up something at the shop. Looks like." A muffled explosion came through the feed and one of the monitors went dark. "They're burning it," Sarah whispered, watching flames begin to engulf her shop. "Everything Jack and I built." "No emergency response," Wilson noted grimly. "Local authorities are completely compromised." Kane watched the fire spread with cold calculation. "They just made their first major mistake. Arson's a federal crime. Torres has contacts in the ATF, FBI. This gives us leverage." "Leverage for what?" Sarah demanded. "They've already destroyed everything." "Not everything," Kane corrected quietly. "They didn't get what they really wanted. Control of that crucial intersection. And now we've got proof of their methods, their real operation. The question is..." He studied Sarah carefully. "How far are you willing to go to get justice?" Sarah touched Jack's dog tags, feeling the familiar metal against her skin. She thought about all the times Jack had told her stories about his team, about the bonds forged in combat, about why men like Kane were considered the elite of the elite. "Tell me everything," she said firmly. Kane nodded to Wilson, who pulled up more surveillance data. "The Steel Serpents are just muscle," he explained. "They work for someone bigger, someone with connections. That's why local law enforcement is compromised. But they're getting sloppy, rushing their timeline, makes them vulnerable." "Chen's been monitoring their communications," Wilson added. "They're moving something big tomorrow night. Multiple trucks, heavy security, whatever it is, it's worth millions. And they need control of that intersection to move it safely," Sarah understood. "That's why they couldn't wait." "Exactly," Kane confirmed. "Which means we've got about 24 hours to get ready. Torres is already setting up overwatch positions. Chen's got their communications compromised. Tomorrow night, we show them what happens when they push too far." "What do you need from me?" Sarah asked, her voice carrying the same strength that had first drawn Jack to her. Kane smiled slightly, the same expression he'd worn before countless combat operations. "They think you're running scared. That works to our advantage. Let them focus on securing their route while we set our trap. But first..." He pulled up building plans on one of the monitors. "We need to talk about their clubhouse. Time for you to learn how Navy SEALs plan an operation." Through the night, they worked on their strategy. Sarah absorbed everything: tactical movements, communication protocols, contingency plans. She recognized Jack's influence in Kane's methodical planning, in Wilson's attention to technical details, in the way the whole team moved with practiced coordination. "Multiple targets, heavily armed, in an urban environment," Kane explained, laying out surveillance photos. "Exactly the kind of operation we specialized in overseas. Only difference is, this time we're on home ground. And this time," Wilson added grimly, "it's personal." Dawn was breaking when Chen's voice came through their comms. "Ghost, got something. Their convoy's doing a practice run. 6 trucks, professional security, definitely military-grade hardware. But there's something else. These guys aren't just bikers. Some of them move like contractors, maybe ex-military." Kane processed this information with practiced efficiency. Makes sense. An operation this size needs professional support. Torres, you got eyes on their route? Affirmative, came the sniper's calm response. They're testing different approaches, looking for surveillance. These guys know what they're doing. Good, Kane replied. Let them think they're being careful. Meanwhile, he turned to Sarah. Ready to learn how we hunt? Sarah looked at the monitors showing her burning shop, then touched Jack's dog tags again. In her mind, she could almost hear his voice. The strongest warriors aren't the ones who never feel fear. They're the ones who feel it and move forward anyway. Ready, she said firmly. Kane nodded approvingly. Then let's begin. First lesson in SEAL operations. The best ambush is the one they never see coming. He pulled up more tactical data as the team gathered around. Time to remind these outlaws why you don't threaten a fallen warrior's family, especially when his brothers are still standing watch. First rule of combat, know your enemy, Kane explained as the team gathered around monitors in their makeshift command center. The screens showed surveillance feeds, building schematics, and data streams from Chen's intercepted communications. The Steel Serpents are just the visible threat. We need to understand who they're really working for. Sarah studied the tactical displays, her mind processing information the way Jack had taught her. These security patterns, she pointed to footage of the convoy's practice run, they're too professional for regular bikers. Exactly, Wilson confirmed, pulling up personnel files. Chen's been doing background checks, at least 6 former military contractors working with the Steel Serpents. These guys did private security in Afghanistan, Iraq, same areas where we operated. Kane's expression hardened slightly, making it personal in more ways than one. Some of these contractors worked for companies we investigated for weapons trafficking overseas. Same patterns, different battlefield. Ghost, Chen's voice crackled through their comms. Got movement at their clubhouse, looks like a meeting, running facial recognition on the new arrivals. The surveillance feed showed 3 black SUVs pulling up to the Steel Serpents compound. Men in expensive suits emerged. They're bearing military, despite their civilian clothes. That's not their usual crowd, Torres observed from his overwatch position. No, Kane agreed grimly. Those are the real players. Chen, get me everything you can on those vehicles. Already on it, diplomatic plates, but they're using counter-surveillance measures. Definitely not regular businessmen. Sarah watched the feed intently. The way they're moving. Jack used to talk about private military companies, how they operated above normal channels. Could this be something similar? Kane nodded approvingly. You've got good instincts. Wilson, show her what we found on their shipping manifests. Wilson pulled up documents on another screen. They're moving something big tonight. Multiple trucks, sophisticated security protocols, specialized handling requirements, but look at these routing codes. Sarah leaned closer, recognizing the pattern. These are military classifications. Jack used to handle similar paperwork for SEAL operations, which means whatever they're moving isn't just illegal, it's classified, Kane explained. Probably stolen military hardware being sold to private buyers. That's why they needed control of your shop's location. The Canyon Road route lets them bypass normal security checkpoints. Ghost, Chen interrupted urgently. Got IDs on our visitors. You're gonna want to see this. The screens displayed personnel files. Former special operations officers now working for a private military corporation called Aegis Defense Solutions. Kane's jaw tightened as he read the names. Should have known. Aegis was under investigation when we were overseas, suspected of selling classified equipment to hostile forces. Case mysteriously disappeared before we could prove anything. And now, they're here, Wilson added, working with local muscle to move something big enough to need this level of security. Sarah processed this information, her tactical mind clicking pieces into place. So the Steel Serpents intimidating local businesses, that's just cover? Creating a cleared route for whatever they're really moving? Smart girl, Kane approved. Jack always said you saw patterns others missed. Yes, they're systematically clearing the area, using the bike gang's reputation to frighten people away from asking questions. Ghost, Torres reported from his position. Convoys starting another practice run. 6 trucks, heavy security. But there's something else. They're setting up blocking positions along Canyon Road, looking like they're planning to shut down all access during the main operation. Kane studied the tactical displays. They're getting ready for tonight. Chen, what's their timeline? Based on intercepted communications, main convoy moves at 2300 hours. They're timing it to minimize civilian traffic, maximize darkness for cover. Which means we have 10 hours to prepare our response, Kane calculated. Wilson, how's our equipment? Ready to go. Got everything we need from our cache. Communications, tactical gear, specialized tools. Just like old times, boss. Sarah watched them work, seeing the same precision Jack had described from their missions together. What's the plan? Kane pulled up a detailed map of the area. They think they've got everything covered. Controlled territory, compromised local law enforcement, professional security. But they're forgetting something crucial. What's that? A slight smile crossed Kane's weathered face. They're fighting on our home ground. We know every alley, every building, every approach. More importantly, they don't know they're being hunted. Wilson, show her the tactical overlay. The map illuminated with annotated positions, fields of fire, escape routes, a complex web of tactical planning. We've spent 3 years mapping this area, Wilson explained. Originally for protecting you, but now it gives us a crucial advantage. Multiple attack points, Sarah noted, recognizing the strategy from Jack's teachings. Like a net closing in. Exactly, Kane confirmed. Torres maintains overwatch from these elevated positions. Chen handles communications and electronic warfare from mobile positions. Wilson's demolitions training gives us controlled chaos when needed. Meanwhile, I lead the direct action team. And me? Sarah asked quietly. Kane studied her carefully. You're the key to the whole operation. They think you're running scared, which means they won't be watching for you. That makes you our perfect insider. Ghost, Chen's voice interrupted. Got something else. Aegis leadership is making calls, lots of them. Running voice recognition now. Sir, they're talking about special cargo requiring specialized handling protocols. Nuclear? Sarah asked, remembering Jack's briefings about sensitive materials. No, Wilson replied, checking data streams. Different security requirements. But whatever it is, it's classified enough to need this level of protection. Kane's expression hardened. Which means we're not just dealing with illegal weapons trafficking. This is about stolen military technology, classified hardware being sold to private buyers, bigger stakes, bigger players. And bigger consequences if we fail, Sarah understood. Won't fail, Kane said firmly. Because we have what they don't. A team that's fought together, trained together, survived together. Plus, he nodded to Sarah, we have someone they'll never suspect. Through their tactical net, Torres reported more movement. Convoys completed another practice run. They're getting smoother, more coordinated. Security teams are setting up final positions. Good, Kane replied. Let them think they're in control. Meanwhile, he turned to Sarah. Time for your crash course in SEAL operations. First lesson, how to move unseen in plain sight. The next hours were intense as the team prepared. Sarah absorbed everything. Communication protocols, movement patterns, emergency procedures. She recognized Jack's influence in their methods, understanding now why he'd always said his team was more than just a military unit. Ghost, Chen reported as afternoon faded toward evening. Got confirmation on the convoy's cargo. Intercepted communications mentioned Project Oracle. Some kind of classified targeting system, worth millions on the black market. Kane processed this information. That explains the security. Oracle's been rumored in contractor circles. Next-generation military technology. If Aegis is stealing and selling it, then this is bigger than just local criminals, Sarah finished. This is about national security. Exactly, Kane confirmed. Which means we're not just protecting your shop anymore. We're stopping something that could get American soldiers killed if it falls into the wrong hands. Sarah touched Jack's dog tags, feeling their familiar weight. Just like the missions he died trying to prevent. Yes, Kane said quietly. And just like then, we're the only ones in position to stop it. The question is, are you ready? Sarah looked at the tactical displays, at the team that had protected her for 3 years, at the evidence of corruption and betrayal they'd uncovered. She thought about Jack, about his dedication to his mission, his team, his country. Then she straightened, squaring her shoulders the way she'd seen him do countless times before dangerous operations. Ready, she said firmly. Kane nodded, recognizing the same strength that had made Jack fall in love with her. Then let's get started. Time to remind these contractors and outlaws why you don't threaten a fallen warrior's family, especially when his brothers are still standing watch. The sun set over Virginia as the team made their final preparations. In the growing darkness, Sarah could almost feel Jack's presence, guiding them toward justice. The Steel Serpents and their corporate masters thought they were the hunters, moving stolen technology through carefully controlled territory. They were about to learn they were wrong. The real hunters were already in position, invisible in the gathering shadows, ready to protect not just a fallen warrior's legacy but the security he'd died defending. The night belonged to the Guardians now, and judgment was coming. What's that? A slight smile crossed Kane's weathered face. They're fighting on our home ground. We know every alley, every building, every approach. More importantly, they don't know they're being hunted. Wilson, show her the tactical overlay. The map illuminated with annotated positions, fields of fire, escape routes, a complex web of tactical planning. We've spent 3 years mapping this area, Wilson explained. Originally for protecting you, but now it gives us a crucial advantage. Multiple attack points, Sarah noted, recognizing the strategy from Jack's teachings, like a net closing in. Exactly, Kane confirmed. Torres maintains overwatch from these elevated positions. Chen handles communications and electronic warfare from mobile positions. Wilson's demolitions training gives us controlled chaos when needed. Meanwhile, I lead the direct action team. And me? Sarah asked quietly. Kane studied her carefully. You're the key to the whole operation. They think you're running scared, which means they won't be watching for you. That makes you our perfect insider. Ghost, Chen's voice interrupted. Got something else. Aegis leadership is making calls, lots of them. Running voice recognition now. Sir, they're talking about special cargo requiring specialized handling protocols. Nuclear? Sarah asked, remembering Jack's briefings about sensitive materials. No, Wilson replied, checking data streams. Different security requirements, but whatever it is, it's classified enough to need this level of protection. Kane's expression hardened, which means we're not just dealing with illegal weapons trafficking. This is about stolen military technology, classified hardware being sold to private buyers. Bigger stakes, bigger players. And bigger consequences if we fail, Sarah understood. Won't fail, Kane said firmly. Because we have what they don't. A team that's fought together, trained together, survived together. Plus, he nodded to Sarah, we have someone they'll never suspect. Through their tactical net, Torres reported more movement. Convoys completed another practice run. They're getting smoother, more coordinated. Security teams are setting up final positions. Good, Kane replied. Let them think they're in control. Meanwhile, he turned to Sarah. Time for your crash course in SEAL operations. First lesson, how to move unseen in plain sight. The next hours were intense as the team prepared. Sarah absorbed everything. Communication protocols, movement patterns, emergency procedures. She recognized Jack's influence in their methods, understanding now why he'd always said his team was more than just a military unit. Ghost, Chen reported as afternoon faded toward evening. Got confirmation on the convoy's cargo. Intercepted communications mentioned Project Oracle, some kind of classified targeting system, worth millions on the black market. Kane processed this information. That explains the security. Oracle's been rumored in contractor circles, next-generation military technology. If Aegis is stealing and selling it, then this is bigger than just local criminals, Sarah finished. This is about national security. Exactly, Kane confirmed. which means we're not just protecting your shop anymore. We're stopping something that could get American soldiers killed if it falls into the wrong hands. Sarah touched Jack's dog tags, feeling their familiar weight, just like the missions he died trying to prevent. Yes, Kane said quietly. And just like then, we're the only ones in position to stop it. The question is, are you ready? Sarah looked at the tactical displays, at the team that had protected her for 3 years, at the evidence of corruption and betrayal they'd uncovered. She thought about Jack, about his dedication to his mission, his team, his country. Then she straightened, squaring her shoulders the way she'd seen him do countless times before dangerous operations. Ready, she said firmly. Kane nodded, recognizing the same strength that had made Jack fall in love with her. Then let's get started. Time to remind these contractors and outlaws why you don't threaten a fallen warrior's family, especially when his brothers are still standing watch. The sun set over Virginia as the team made their final preparations. In the growing darkness, Sarah could almost feel Jack's presence, guiding them toward justice. The Steel Serpents and their corporate masters thought they were the hunters, moving stolen technology through carefully controlled territory. They were about to learn they were wrong. The real hunters were already in position, invisible in the gathering shadows, ready to protect not just a fallen warrior's legacy, but the security he died defending. The night belonged to the Guardians now, and judgment was coming. The night settled over the industrial district like a tactical cloak as Sarah moved through the shadows, Jack's dog tag silent against her chest. Kane's training from the past few hours echoed in her mind. Move with purpose, but not urgency. You belong here. That's what they need to believe. She approached the Steel Serpents compound wearing mechanic's coveralls, toolbox in hand, just another professional, called in for last-minute vehicle maintenance before their big operation. The guards at the gate barely gave her a second glance, exactly as Kane had predicted. Who would suspect the woman they'd terrorized would walk right into their den? Target is in position, Torres reported from his overwatch post, his sniper rifle trained on the compound's main building. Security remains focused outward. They're not expecting threats from inside. Through her concealed earpiece, Sarah heard Kane's calm response. Maintain surveillance, Chen. Status on their communications? Convoy preparations proceeding on schedule, Chen replied. They're running final checks now. Security teams are focused on the route, just like we wanted. Sarah passed through the compound's outer security, her heart hammering but her movements steady. The toolbox contained more than just wrenches. Wilson's specialized equipment would let them tap into the convoy's secure communications, track their movements, and, most importantly, gather proof of the illegal technology transfer. Inside the main garage, she found what they'd expected. 6 heavy trucks being prepped for transport, their cargo carefully concealed under military-grade camouflage. Professional contractors conducted final security sweeps, while Steel Serpents members tried to look important. Packages in play, she murmured, pretending to check one of the truck's engines. Multiple targets confirmed. Copy that, Kane acknowledged. Wilson, prepare for Phase 2. Remember, everyone, timing is everything. We only get one shot at this. Sarah continued her work, planting Wilson's devices while maintaining her cover. Through her earpiece, she heard Chen reporting increased chatter on the security channels. The operation was about to begin, and with it, their chance to strike back against those who'd tried to destroy Jack's legacy. The real hunters were in position, and their prey had no idea they were already inside the kill zone. Sarah's hands remained steady as she completed installing Wilson's tracking devices, each movement precise despite the tension coursing through her body. Around her, the Steel Serpents compound buzzed with pre-operation activity. Professional contractors conducted final security checks while bikers swaggered around, playing at being soldiers. Final device in place, she murmured, closing the hood of the last truck. Ready for Phase 2. Copy that. Kane's voice came through her earpiece. Chen, start the hack. Wilson, get ready to create our diversion. Torres, maintain overwatch and be prepared for contingencies. Sarah moved toward the exit, her work apparently complete, when a familiar voice froze her in place. Well, what do we have here? Butcher emerged from the shadows, his massive frame blocking her path. Funny, I don't remember authorizing any last-minute maintenance. Through her earpiece, she heard Kane's calm instruction. Stay in character. Remember your cover story. Just finishing up, Sarah replied steadily, holding up her work order. Your dispatcher called for pre-transport checks, standard procedure for a convoy this size. Butcher studied the paperwork, his eyes narrowing. Dispatcher, huh? Let me make a call about that. He pulled out his phone. Phase 2 now, Kane ordered sharply. Suddenly, alarms blared across the compound. Security lights flickered and died as Wilson's electronic warfare packages activated. Chen's voice came through their tactical net. All their communications are compromised. Security systems are down. Chaos erupted as contractors and bikers scrambled to respond to the apparent security breach. Butcher turned away from Sarah, barking orders into his now useless phone. She used the confusion to slip away, moving exactly as Kane had taught her. Target is clear, Torres reported from his position, moving to secondary overwatch point. Sarah made it outside just as the real operation began. The sound of multiple explosions rocked the compound as Wilson's carefully placed charges detonated, creating strategic chaos without risking lives. Through the darkness, she could see Kane's team moving in, using the confusion to their advantage. The hunters had sprung their trap, and the night was about to become very interesting for the Steel Serpents and their corporate masters. Chaos reigned in the Steel Serpents compound as Kane's team executed their carefully orchestrated plan. The professional contractors scrambled to secure their classified cargo, while the bikers added to the confusion, their practiced intimidation useless against an invisible enemy that seemed to strike from everywhere at once. All teams, execute pattern Delta, Kane commanded through their tactical net. Wilson, status on the charges? Secondary explosions ready on your mark, Wilson replied. Got their ammunition storage targeted. One spark and their whole security force will be too busy with damage control to chase us. Sarah had reached her extraction point, moving exactly as they'd practiced. Through her earpiece, she heard Chen reporting, Ghost, we've got company. Aegis Rapid Response Team incoming. 3 vehicles heavily armed. Right on schedule. Kane's voice carried grim satisfaction. Torres, prepare to disable their vehicles. Sarah, you in position? Ready, she confirmed, watching from her concealed location as the compound dissolved into carefully managed disorder. The stolen technology was vulnerable now, its professional security detail dispersed by multiple threats they couldn't effectively counter. The night erupted with precision violence as Kane's team moved to secure their real objective. The Steel Serpents were about to learn why you don't threaten a fallen warrior's family, especially when his brothers have spent years preparing for revenge. Chaos reigned in the Steel Serpents compound as Kane's team executed their carefully orchestrated plan. The professional contractors scrambled to secure their classified cargo, while the bikers added to the confusion, their practiced intimidation useless against an invisible enemy that seemed to strike from everywhere at once. All teams, execute pattern Delta, Kane commanded through their tactical net. Wilson, status on the charges? Secondary explosions ready on your mark, Wilson replied. Got their ammunition storage targeted. 1 spark, and their whole security force will be too busy with damage control to chase us. Sarah had reached her extraction point, moving exactly as they'd practiced. Through her earpiece, she heard Chen reporting, Ghost, we've got company. Aegis Rapid Response Team incoming. 3 vehicles, heavily armed. Right on schedule, Kane's voice carried grim satisfaction. Torres, prepare to disable their vehicles. Sarah, you in position? Ready, she confirmed, watching from her concealed location as the compound dissolved into carefully managed disorder. The stolen technology was vulnerable now, its professional security detail dispersed by multiple threats they couldn't effectively counter. Through her tactical scope, Sarah watched Butcher emerge from the main building, shouting orders that no one could hear through the electronic interference Chen had created. The Steel Serpents president looked smaller somehow, his intimidating presence diminished by confrontation with an enemy he couldn't bully or threaten. Incoming vehicles have entered the kill zone, Torres reported calmly. Permission to engage? Execute, Kane ordered. Wilson, light up the secondaries. The night erupted in controlled chaos as Torres's precisely placed shots disabled the Aegis response team's vehicles. Simultaneously, Wilson's secondary charges detonated near the ammunition storage, creating a threat that demanded immediate response. The compound's security forces found themselves pulled in multiple directions, unable to effectively counter threats they couldn't properly identify. "Chen, initiate Phase 3, Kane commanded. "Time to show them what we've really been doing." Suddenly, every computer screen in the compound lit up with evidence: surveillance footage, financial records, intercepted communications, documenting the full scope of their illegal operation. The professional contractors realized their security had been compromised not just tonight, but for weeks. "Target packages uploading to federal agencies now," Chen confirmed. "A TF, FBI, NSA. They're all getting proof of weapons trafficking, technology theft, and criminal conspiracy." Sarah watched the realization spread across the compound. The Steel Serpents had thought they were untouchable, protected by corruption and violence. Now they were exposed, their criminal empire documented in meticulous detail by the very people they'd tried to intimidate. "Multiple targets breaking contact," Torres reported. "Security teams attempting to evacuate high-value personnel." "Not happening," Kane replied coldly. "Wilson shut down their escape routes. Sarah, get ready. Your next move is crucial." Sarah moved through the shadows toward her final position, understanding now why Kane had insisted on her role. The Steel Serpents had dismissed her as just another victim, never suspecting she was part of the team that would bring them down. Just like Jack had taught her, sometimes the best weapon is being underestimated. The night belonged to the Guardians now, and justice was about to be served in full measure. Butcher's facade of control crumbled as his compound descended into calculated chaos. Through her tactical position, Sarah watched the man who'd threatened her business now facing threats he couldn't intimidate or bribe. The Steel Serpents president barked useless orders, while professional contractors attempted to secure their compromised cargo. "Target is moving," Torres reported from his overwatch position. "Butcher's heading for his personal escape route. Just like you predicted, Ghost." "Perfect," Kane's voice carried cold satisfaction. "Sarah, you're up. Remember, he thinks you're still running scared. Use that." Sarah moved into position, her heart steady despite the chaos around her. The back alley behind the compound was exactly where Kane had said it would be. Butcher's private exit strategy, known only to his inner circle. Or so he thought. "Package is secure," Wilson reported through their tactical net. "All evidence of Project Oracle has been documented. Federal agencies are moving in response to Chen's data dump." Butcher burst through the emergency exit, his massive frame silhouetted against the burning compound. He froze when he saw Sarah standing calmly in his escape route, holding her late husband's M9 service pistol with practiced confidence. "You?" he snarled, reaching for his own weapon. "I wouldn't," Sarah said quietly as red targeting dots appeared on his chest. "Jack's brothers are very protective of their family." Understanding dawned on Butcher's face as Kane emerged from the shadows, moving with the lethal grace that had earned him the call sign Ghost. "You've been played," Kane informed him coldly. "Every threat, every act of intimidation, we documented all of it, along with proof of your weapons trafficking operation. You think this changes anything?" Butcher growled, though his bravado was cracking. "We've got protection, connections you can't touch." "You mean Aegis?" Sarah asked calmly. "The ones whose classified technology theft we just exposed to every federal agency with jurisdiction? Those connections?" Through their earpieces, Chen reported, "Federal tactical teams are 3 minutes out. Local police assets have been neutralized by Torres's ATF contacts." "Your choice is simple," Kane told Butcher, as Wilson and Torres moved to secure the area. "Surrender now. Provide evidence against your corporate partners. Maybe get protection when they start eliminating loose ends. Orient." He shrugged meaningfully. "Find out why they called me Ghost in combat." Butcher looked from Sarah's steady aim to the multiple targeting dots on his chest. finally understanding how completely he'd been outmaneuvered. The Steel Serpents had thought they were the predators, never realizing they were being hunted by professionals who'd spent years preparing for this moment. "It's over," Sarah said firmly, seeing the fight drain from the man who'd threatened everything she'd built. "Jack always said the strongest people aren't the ones who use fear. They're the ones who stand against it." The sound of approaching sirens filled the night as Butcher's empire crumbled around him. The hunters had claimed their prey, and justice was being served in full measure. Federal tactical teams swarmed the Steel Serpents compound as Sarah watched from her position, Jack's dog tags cool against her skin. The night had transformed the once intimidating outlaws into what they truly were, criminals facing the consequences of their actions. Through her earpiece, she heard Chen coordinating with the arriving authorities. "ATF teams are securing the weapons cache," he reported. "FBI's cybercrime unit is documenting the Project Oracle data. Ghost, we've got incoming. Looks like Aegis leadership trying to contain the situation." "Too late for that," Kane replied coldly. "Wilson, show them what we found in their secure servers." Every screen in the compound suddenly displayed evidence of Aegis's criminal enterprise. Weapons trafficking routes, technology theft operations, compromised officials. The professional contractors who had thought themselves untouchable now faced irrefutable proof of their crimes. Multiple suspects attempting to flee through the north entrance, Torres reported from his overwatch position, including our friends from Aegis. "Not happening," Kane commanded. "Sarah, time for the final phase. You ready?" Sarah moved into position, remembering everything Jack had taught her about standing firm in crucial moments. She watched as panicked Aegis executives ran straight into their carefully prepared trap, finding themselves faced with the widow they'd helped terrorize, now backed by a team of elite warriors. "Gentlemen," she said clearly, her voice carrying across the chaos, "I believe we need to discuss your business practices." The Aegis leaders froze, realizing too late that their corporate power meant nothing against opponents who'd spent years preparing for this moment. Kane's team emerged from strategic positions, their movements carrying the precision that had made them legendary in combat. "Your operation is compromised," Kane informed them coldly. "Every server, every communication, every illegal deal, all of it documented and transmitted to multiple federal agencies. Your local protection is gone. Your security teams are contained, and your corporate damage control won't help you this time." "You have no idea what you're interfering with," one executive snarled, his expensive suit stained with smoke from the compound's controlled fires. "Actually, we do," Sarah replied, thinking of Jack's final mission. Project Oracle, classified targeting systems, weapons technology that could get American soldiers killed if it falls into the wrong hands. The same kind of operation my husband died trying to prevent. Through their tactical net, Chen reported more incoming federal units. NSA teams are on site, confirming the technology theft. State Department's been notified about the international implications. This is going full interagency. The night air carried the sound of helicopters as major federal response units arrived to secure the scene. The Steel Serpents compound had become ground zero for exposing a conspiracy that went far beyond local criminals. "You had a choice," Sarah told the contained Aegis leaders, as federal agents moved to take them into custody. "You could have run legitimate operations, helped protect our soldiers. Instead, you chose profit over patriotism, greed over honor. And now," Kane added with grim satisfaction, "you get to explain those choices to every agency whose jurisdiction you violated. I hear federal prosecutors are particularly interested in technology theft cases these days." The night belonged to justice now, as Sarah watched the people who'd threatened her legacy face the consequences of their actions. Jack's brothers had kept their promise, protecting his family while serving the principles he'd died defending. Through it all, Sarah felt Jack's presence, his strength flowing through the dog tags she wore. He'd taught her that true courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about standing firm even when afraid. Tonight, she and his team had honored that lesson in the most fitting way possible. Dawn painted the Virginia sky in shades of gold as Sarah stood in Arlington National Cemetery, Jack's dog tags catching the early light. The white marble headstone seemed different somehow, not just a marker of loss, but a testament to promises kept and justice served. "It's done," she said softly, arranging fresh flowers by the grave. "Your brothers kept their word, Jack. Protected more than just me. Protected everything you fought for." Kane approached quietly, his tactical presence softened by the sacred ground. "ATF just confirmed. Entire Steel Serpents leadership is in custody. FBI's cybercrime unit has locked down all of Aegis's servers. Project Oracle has been secured." "What about their corporate connections?" Sarah asked, thinking of the broader conspiracy they'd exposed. "State Department's involved now," Kane replied. "International Task Force is tracking down every piece of stolen technology, every compromised contract. Chen's data dump gave them everything they needed. The whole network is coming down." Sarah touched the headstone gently. He would have liked that. Knowing his death helped expose something this important. "He'd be prouder of you," Kane said quietly. "Way you handled yourself in the operation. Pure operator material. Jack always said you had that fire in you." Through their earpieces, Chen reported, "Ghost, got final numbers from federal processing. 37 Steel Serpents members in custody. 12 Aegis executives facing multiple federal charges. 6 compromised local officials arrested. Plus all the evidence on Project Oracle's international buyers." "Good hunting," Kane acknowledged. "Wilson, Torres, status?" "Shop's insurance came through," Wilson reported. "Arson investigation confirmed it was deliberately set. Sarah's got full coverage for rebuilding, plus federal compensation as part of the criminal case." "And some interesting offers," Torres added. "A TF wants to contract with the new shop for vehicle work. Seems they're impressed with a garage that helped take down an international weapons ring." Sarah smiled slightly, remembering Jack's dream of building something meaningful. "Guess we'll need a bigger facility then. Maybe add some specialized security features." "Already got plans drawn up," Kane confirmed. "Chen's working on a state-of-the-art surveillance system. Place will be better protected than most military bases." The morning sun climbed higher as they stood in the hallowed ground of Arlington, surrounded by markers of sacrifice and service. Sarah knew some of them now. Other fallen warriors whose teams still carried their memory, still honored their legacy through continued service. "What happens next?" she asked quietly. Kane's expression held the same calm certainty that had guided them through the operation. "We keep our promise. Shop gets rebuilt bigger and better. Team stays in position, visible now but still watching, and if anyone else thinks about causing trouble, they'll learn the same lesson as the Steel Serpents," Sarah finished. "Don't threaten a fallen warrior's family when his brothers are standing guard." The autumn wind carried the sound of distant taps as another hero was laid to rest. Sarah touched Jack's dog tags one final time, feeling their familiar weight, no longer just a reminder of loss, but a symbol of the strength that came from standing together against darkness. The hunters had completed their mission. Justice had been served, but their watch would continue. In the quiet dawn of Arlington, surrounded by markers of sacrifice and honor, Sarah understood that some promises transcend death, especially when kept by warriors who never forgot their fallen brothers. Fresh flowers marked Jack's grave as they departed, heading back to the work of rebuilding. The Steel Serpents were finished, their criminal empire dismantled, their corporate masters facing justice. But more importantly, the legacy of a fallen warrior lived on, in his widow's strength, in his brother's vigilance, in the promise that would never be broken. The morning sun painted Virginia gold as a new chapter began, written in the language of honor, loyalty, and promises kept until the end. 3 months later, Mitchell's Automotive rose from the ashes, bigger and better than ever. The new facility gleamed with state-of-the-art equipment, reinforced security, and a special forces touch that was subtle but unmistakable to those who knew where to look. "Perimeter systems are fully operational," Chen reported from his new office. Officially the shop's IT consultant, unofficially their surveillance and security specialist. "Got coverage on every approach, plus links to local law enforcement and federal databases." Sarah moved through the main garage bay, now twice the size of the original. Military and law enforcement vehicles lined the walls, their presence a testament to the shop's new specialized clientele. "Torres, how's that tactical transport coming along?" "Almost done," the former sniper replied from beneath an armored SUV. "ATF's going to love the upgrades we installed. Silent running, reinforced suspension, complete communications suite." Wilson emerged from his new workspace, officially the shop's electronics specialist, actually their tactical operations center. "Got another contract request from the FBI field office. They're impressed with our vehicle modifications." "Tell them we'll need to expand the secure storage area," Sarah decided, thinking how Jack would have loved seeing his dream grow like this. "Kane, what do you think?" The former SEAL chief studied the facility with professional satisfaction. "Think we've built something good here. More than just a business, a legacy. Way to honor everything Jack fought for." Through their now permanent communications network, Chen reported, "Got visitors incoming. Looks like our friends from State Department's technical division. Probably hear about those specialized upgrades they requested." Sarah watched government vehicles pull into the reinforced parking area, remembering how different things had been just months ago. The Steel Serpents were finished, their leadership serving long federal sentences. Aegis's criminal empire had been dismantled, their stolen technology recovered, their international connections exposed. But more importantly, Jack's dream had evolved into something bigger, a facility that supported the same kind of operators he'd served with, helping protect those who carried on the mission. His brothers remained in position, their covers now legitimate jobs, their watchful presence a comfort rather than a secret. "Got more tactical vehicles coming in next week," Wilson reported, checking their schedule. 3 from DEA, 2 from Diplomatic Security, plus that classified project for the counterterrorism unit. Sarah touched Jack's dog tags, now displayed proudly rather than hidden. He'd be proud of this, turning something they tried to destroy into something that helps protect others. "He'd be prouder of you," Kane said quietly. "Way you've stepped up, learned the technical side, become a real part of the team. Always said you had operator potential." The Virginia sun streamed through bulletproof windows as Sarah surveyed their new operation. Jack's legacy lived on, transformed but unbroken, now serving the same cause he'd died defending. His brothers remained faithful to their promise, their vigilance now a visible shield rather than a hidden guardian. Mitchell's Automotive had become more than just a business. It was a testament to loyalty, to promises kept, to the unbreakable bonds between warriors who never forgot their fallen brothers. The Steel Serpents had thought they could destroy a widow's dream. Instead, they'd helped forge something stronger, a legacy that would continue serving and protecting for years to come. The Hunters had become guardians, their watch now open rather than hidden, their mission evolved, but unchanged. And if anyone else ever thought about threatening what they'd built, well, they'd learn the same lesson as the Steel Serpents. You don't threaten a fallen warrior's family, especially when his brothers stand ready to protect everything he died defending. Sarah's evening routine always ended at Jack's grave in Arlington, but today she wasn't alone. Kane and the team stood with her, marking the 4-year anniversary of their promise. The autumn wind carried memories of that hospital room in Germany, of oaths sworn and bonds forged in the hardest moments. "Got something to show you, Jack," Sarah said softly, placing fresh flowers by the white marble headstone. "Remember that dream you had about building something that mattered? Well, it's grown into something even bigger than you imagined." She laid out photos of the new facility, reinforced walls now housing an operation that supported agencies across the federal government, images of modified tactical vehicles, specialized equipment, cutting-edge security systems that protected those who served. "Shops become a real asset to the community," Kane reported, as if giving a mission briefing to his former lieutenant. "Supporting federal operations, protecting specialized units, giving other warriors the equipment they need to come home safe. And still watching over everything you cared about," Wilson added quietly. "Teams in place, stronger than ever, any trouble shows up." He shrugged meaningfully. Through their permanent communications net, Chen reported, "Got the final numbers from federal prosecution. Steel Serpents leadership, 25 to life. Aegis executives facing multiple consecutive sentences. Project Oracle technology completely recovered and secured. Plus the shop's new contracts, Torres added. DEA, FBI, diplomatic security. They all want our specialized modifications, building something that helps protect others, just like you always wanted. Sarah touched the dog tags she still wore, feeling their familiar weight. Your brothers kept their promise, Jack. Protected more than just me, protected everything you believed in, turned a local garage into something that serves the same mission you died defending. The evening sun painted Arlington's markers in shades of gold as they stood in companionable silence. Around them, other visitors paid respects to fallen heroes, unaware that some promises transcended death, that some bonds could never be broken. Got an interesting request today, Kane said finally. Counter-terrorism unit wants us to expand our operation. Set up a training facility for their vehicle teams, teach them some of our specialized modifications. Jack would have loved that. Sarah smiled slightly. Always said the best way to honor fallen warriors was to help protect the ones still serving. Through their earpieces, Chen reported routine updates, security systems functioning perfectly, new contracts being processed, specialized equipment performing as designed. The operation they'd built from ashes had become exactly what Jack had dreamed of, a force for protecting others. Teams growing too, Wilson noted. Got 3 former operators joining next month, all vetted and cleared. Plus that Navy SEAL who just retired. He's got some interesting ideas about underwater vehicle modifications. Family gets bigger, Kane nodded approvingly. More warriors carrying on the mission, honoring the legacy, just like Jack would have wanted. Sarah arranged the flowers by the headstone, thinking how different things were from that terrible day 4 years ago. The Steel Serpents had thought they could destroy a widow's dream through intimidation and violence. Instead, they'd helped forge something stronger, a legacy that would continue serving and protecting for years to come. Mission continues, she said softly, touching the marble marker. Your dream lives on, bigger than ever. And your brothers. She looked at the team that had become her family. They're still standing watch, still protecting everything you fought for. The evening light faded over Arlington as they paid their respects. Warriors gathered to honor fallen brothers and renewed promises. Mitchell's Automotive had become more than just a business. It was a testament to loyalty, to oaths kept, to the unbreakable bonds between those who served. And if trouble ever threatened again, they would face the same lesson as the Steel Serpents. You don't threaten a fallen warrior's family, especially when his brothers stand ready to protect his legacy until the end. The autumn wind carried the sound of distant taps as they departed, heading back to their mission of service and protection. Jack's dream lived on, transformed but unbroken, now helping safeguard others who carried the same torch of duty and sacrifice. The hunters had become guardians, their watch now open rather than hidden, their purpose evolved but unchanged. And in the quiet evening at Arlington, surrounded by markers of heroes fallen but never forgotten, Sarah knew that some promises transcended death, especially when kept by warriors who never forgot their fallen brothers.